Hi students, it's Mr. Ramage, and this lesson is about a law that made things worse when Americans needed help the most. We'll be talking about the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act, one of the most infamous economic decisions in U.S. history. Let's learn about why it was passed, what it was supposed to do, and how it impacted not only the U.S., but the entire world. Oh, and we might just see some similarities to some more recent history as well. It's 1929 and the U.S. stock market has just crashed. Farms are struggling and businesses are laying off workers as the nation slides towards not just a recession, but a full-blown depression. Senator Reed Smoot and Representative Willis C. Hawley, both Republicans, who propose a new tariff in order to protect American business and agriculture from foreign competition. A tariff is basically a tax designed to make foreign goods more expensive and therefore protect American manufacturers and farmers from that foreign competition. But as we will learn, tariffs don't really tax foreign businesses at all. Anyways, back to the plan. With the price of foreign goods going up to cover the cost of the tariff, Americans would choose the more affordable American-made goods. Instead of purchasing goods from other countries, Americans would spend American dollars on American businesses, keeping the dollar in America and the American economy growing. Spoiler alert, it's gonna backfire, big time. Tariffs have always been around, and were pretty much a staple of the global economy. In 1927, the League of Nations held a World Economic Conference in Geneva, concluding that the time has come to put an end to tariffs, and to move in the opposite direction. But issues with the repayment of debts and reparations after the Great War had complicated many things, which we won't get into here. During the 1928 election, one of Herbert Hoover's campaign promises was to help farmers by increasing tariffs on agricultural products from Europe. With the Republicans gaining control of the White House as well as both houses of Congress, it was time to make good on those campaign promises, hence Smoot and Hawley's tariff bill. Now, threats of retaliation by other countries began long before the bill was enacted into law in June of 1930. Some countries protested and others also retaliated with trade restrictions and tariffs. This is the natural reaction when one country creates a tariff. American exports to the protesters fell by 18%, and exports to those which retaliated with their own tariffs fell by 31%. In May 1929, a year before the tariff became law, boycotts broke out and foreign governments moved to increase rates against American products in response to this proposed tariff. Hoover's administration had received protest notes from 23 trading partners, but ignored the threats of retaliatory tariffs. In May 1930, a petition was signed by 1,028 economists in the United States asking President Hoover to veto the legislation. Even Henry Ford spent an evening at the White House trying to convince Hoover to veto the bill, calling it an economic stupidity. J.P. Morgan's chief executive, Thomas Lamont, said he almost went down on his knees to beg Herbert Hoover to veto the asinine Hawley-Smoot tariff. Hoover himself had once called the bill vicious, extortionate, and obnoxious, believing it would undermine global competition, which it would. He eventually signed the bill, yielding to influence from his own political party and the threat of resignation from his cabinet. In May 1930, Canada, the most loyal trading partner for the U.S., retaliated by imposing new tariffs on 16 products, accounting for 30% of U.S. exports to Canada. The tariff became law on June 17, 1930. For a few months, there was a glimmer of hope as, according to historian Robert Sobel, factory payrolls, construction contracts, and industrial production all increased sharply. But by 1931, it was clear that Smoot-Hawley would be a disaster. Rather than stimulating the economy, the Smoot-Hawley tariff drove America deeper into the Great Depression. U.S. exports plummeted by 61%, and imports fell by 66% between 1929 and 1933. The gross national product decreased from $103.1 billion in 1929 to $55.6 billion in 1933. Unemployment soared from 8% in 1930 to 25% by 1933. While the Depression had multiple causes, the tariff significantly worsened the economic downturn by stifling international trade and harming export-dependent industries. Imports from Europe decreased from a 1929 high of $1.3 billion to just $390 million by 1932. Meanwhile, U.S. exports to Europe decreased from $2.3 billion in 1929 to $784 million in 1932. Overall, world trade decreased by some 66% between 1929 and 1934. The economic depression worsened for workers and farmers despite Smoot-Hawley's promises of prosperity from high tariffs. Prices continued to rise as wages declined and unemployment rose. Hawley lost renomination for his congressional seat, while Smoot was one of 12 Republican senators defeated in the 1932 elections, the largest swing in American history. FDR and the Democrats pledged to reduce tariffs, and in 1934 created the Reciprocal Tariff Act, allowing the president to negotiate tariff reductions on a bilateral basis and treating tariffs now as legislation and not as treaties. Since President Trump took office in 2025, he has issued, delayed, and reduced tariffs on a number of nations around the world, leading to economic chaos and instability. We aren't sure what the future holds for Trump's tariffs, but like in 1930, economists and experts continue to explain how these taxes on imports do not tend to benefit the American worker or consumer. The Smoot-Hawley Tariff is widely regarded by historians and economists as a policy failure. It serves as a cautionary example of the dangers of protectionism during economic downturns. The consensus is that the tariff deepened the Great Depression and had far-reaching negative effects on both the U.S. and global economies, while also straining political relationships in a time when ultra-aggressive nations were on the rise, threatening the safety and security of the world. Thanks for watching this video lesson, and I hope you learned something.